I love buying cheap storage and combing through it in search of treasure. Old software, deleted files, maybe even lost media. This is Archive Dive. Hello everyone, just to acknowledge the amazing growth that we've had in the past week, the incredible number of views, and all the new subscribers. Thank you very much for coming here and spending your time with me. Please continue to stick around if you find what I do interesting. This video has been in the works for a while, and it's just sort of landing this week, but I feel like it answers some questions that some of you have had about what you can actually do to protect your data when you pass a drive on or sell it to somebody else. And yeah, thanks for all the support. Welcome back! Normally, we recover files, but this week, I'm going to explain to you how data recovery works. Why? So you can use that knowledge to make sure it doesn't work. I'll teach you how to really delete sensitive information. The steps that you can take to stop me rifling through your homework folder. Since starting Archive Dive, friends and family have asked me, when you delete a file, isn't it gone? And that's a hard question to answer.
The answer is yes and no.
To the average consumer, the file is essentially gone, since it's no longer accessible by normal means. You can't get the file is gone. With the right tools, however, and knowledge of how file systems work, there's a good chance it can be recovered. We need to go over what happens when you delete a file, because this helps us to then understand why files can be recovered. Then that leads nicely into how you might be able to ensure a file is thoroughly inaccessible or gone for good. This guide isn't for tricky people. If you're up to no good, you'll be caught eventually. What I'm teaching here is so when you donate your stuff to sex or wherever, you can give it a thorough scrub beforehand. So, when files are deleted, they're not really deleted. It goes against common sense and conventional logic, but it's true. And no, it's not because they go to the recycle bin. Many operating systems have a designated area to store deleted files to allow them to be recovered, but let's say you deleted the file by emptying the recycle bin or using a common key combination like Shift and Delete. Guess what? You still haven't actually deleted the contents of the file, only the idea of the file. Because files are like just a construct, man. Depending on how familiar you are with computers, this revelation might have just completely blown your mind. You're welcome, by the way. How does it feel to be seeing everything in code now, like Neo in The Matrix? Your file system is made up of an MFT, a master file table, with the name of the file, its location, its creation date, etc., and the physical sectors of the drive, or storage medium you're working with. I mean, there's much more to it, but we don't have all day. This is all you need to know. Each sector is made up of bytes, which are made up of bits, and these bits are set to 1 or 0, essentially on or off. Keeping it simple, since MFT entries actually have multiple modes, for example used and unused, but all that matters to us here is what happens when we delete a file. The MFT can be any size, it's basically limitless, but there's a set number of these sectors on the drive. Sectors cannot be removed, but their contents can be changed. Each entry in the MFT points to exactly which sectors make up its data. You grab the file entry, it shows you where the data is, it's that shrimple. You decided that you no longer need a file, so you delete the record of the file. The sectors remain, because the amount of sectors you have on a drive never changes. In the case of sending a file to the recycle bin, all you really do is take the entry relating to that file and put it in another spot. You don't move the actual data at all. That's why you can recover files from the recycle bin so easily. They haven't really been deleted. So you empty the recycle bin, or just delete the file directly. The record is gone. The data itself isn't. You create a new file, which creates a new entry in the MFT. That new file can now reuse the sectors that were attached to the previous file, changing their data when needed. Basically, deleting a file only deletes the record that points to where the data is stored, typically removing the visibility of the file from your operating system. The file record itself in the MFT is untouched until in use by a new file, which is why we can sometimes recover files, along with their file names, location, and metadata. On an old-school hard disk, the sectors you overwrite with a new file are essentially random, and on an SSD, it's a little more complicated, but we'll get to that. So can you target a specific sector? Not really. So why don't we overwrite a file when we delete it? Honestly, that's an excellent question. It's basically because Bill Gates and the rest of Microsoft were working with very old computers. Back then, the process of changing every bit to zeros would take a long time. So why don't we do it nowadays that PCs are so fast? These days it would inflict unnecessary extra wear on your storage media, making it expire sooner. SSDs, USB sticks, and other flash storage doesn't work like old spinning disks do. The process of deleting files involves physical cell clearing and background data shifting, along with anti-wear processes that run in the background, such as TRIM. Oh, it's starting to sound too technical. We're losing them. Jangle the keys. Jangle the keys.
Oh my god! They killed Kenny!
It's worth briefly mentioning TRIM. On SSDs, a background function called TRIM is run to reduce wear, which limits the time available to perform file recovery, but also makes precise overwrites even less predictable. It also ensures that new files are written to different areas to reduce wear on specific sectors, which has the added effect of improving the chances of successful data recovery. On a traditional hard drive, sectors can be changed as many times as needed. On an SSD, this causes wear and will eventually cause them to fail. The data that the files are composed of may eventually become inaccessible due to corruption merely from overuse. We're talking millions of writes, but still, wear is wear. The trade-off for the speed and efficacy of solid-state drives is their eventual death, which is really kind of philosophical if you think about it. If you're using an SSD and want to ensure the data is lost, more drastic measures are required. More on that later. I'm not saying you need a hammer, but you might need a hammer. So if you think about what I've told you already, then you can suss out how data recovery works. If the sectors haven't been changed by a new file, it should be possible to recover the deleted data by simply scanning every unused sector of the drive. We can ascertain what kind of file each sector might have belonged to. The process doesn't recover everything. Sometimes image data is messed up, or the metadata attached to it is gone. Audio and video files can end up smushed together, causing songs to skip around or suddenly change into a different one. This happens because stitching files back together from their sectors is basically a form of guesswork, albeit one that data recovery software is good at. In massive amounts of empty space, you may also trigger false positives, which is when the remaining data from a secure overwrite is read as a real file, resulting in junk. So the process is imperfect, but it is still good enough to recover some, if not most, of the deleted files. I use recover from Piriform for most drives, though it has a habit of crashing or recovering too slowly when dealing with larger or older drives. If that happens, I use Christophe Granier's Test Disk and QPhotoRec instead. Both have their strengths and weaknesses, but more importantly, they're both free for personal use. for creating an entire disk image for more in-depth forensical analysis. HDD raw copy is a good option, and RescueZilla is a great alternative since you can boot into it, like an operating system. I've been told that test disk can also create perfect 1:1 copies of a drive's sectors. So now we know how to recover files, we can go over how to make sure they're not recoverable. This is the bit I'm sure you've all been waiting for: how to shred that homework folder. There are many ways of doing this, and none of them require paying a professional to do it. All they're going to do is use the exact same software we are, and just charge you for it. Overwriting a file requires checking the file record in the MFT to see what sectors make up its contents. Then, you either fill each sector with junk data, or with zeros, effectively deleting the contents that belong to the file. Then, you throw away the reference that says a file was there. One pass should be enough, but sometimes you need to do it a couple of times to be sure it's gone. There's a whole range of reasons why, all of which are boring and far outside of my limited scope of knowledge. Overwriting is slow, and inflicts increased wear on flash storage. But let's say you don't care. The data is really sensitive, and it needs to go. In that case, I would point to software such as Piriform's CCleaner, or the open source File Shredder, since these programs are more than happy to securely erase existing files for you, in one of several deletion algorithms of your choosing. There's also BleachBit, which allows you to specify files and folders of your choice, and Revo Uninstaller, which I have also recently started using, which is also capable of shredding specific files for you. Uh-oh, you say. I deleted the file the normal way, and now I want to make sure it's gone. What can I do?
All and done!
Well, what about wiping the space that doesn't belong to any files? That can be done too, and is what's called wiping free space. CCleaner, BleachBit, Revo Uninstaller, and File Shredder can also do this for you. It is done by looking at every file record in the MFT, finding which sectors do not belong to them, and then securely wiping or jumbling the contents of only those sectors. This is great for paranoid people, but terrible for the life of flash-based storage. So you have an SSD, and shredding files will kill your drive prematurely. What can you do?
There must be a simpler way.
SSDs have a secret weapon for secure deletion, but it comes at a price. It's everything or nothing. You can use bootable drive wiping tools such as dban, Darik's Boot and Nuke, or the ATA Secure Erase function if you have one in your BIOS or UEFI tools. This will securely wipe a whole drive, including all of its contents. This causes far less wear than emptying the sectors one by one. It's quick and completely irreversible.
And it's gone.
This is best used with drives that are internally connected to your computer, as certain USB interfaces don't support it. It works by telling the SSD to apply a voltage across every single storage cell at once, setting them all to 0 immediately. You lose everything. Literally everything. But if you're that paranoid, I don't think there's a better option for speed and certainty. You can also do a cryptographic erase, which is similar, but that requires the drive to be encrypted first. Once your drive is encrypted, you can erase the cryptographic key. The data still remains, but is theoretically impossible to recover, effectively wiping it. Current estimations say it would take an AI 13 billion years to crack it, so you know, it's gone. But again, how paranoid are you? If you're really that worried, you could take a hammer, or drill, or any destructive tool, and just utterly decimate the drive or SD card or whatever, but that's a waste of a good drive, innit? Also, sawing a hard drive in half isn't a good look either. If you get caught doing it, you'd look guilty as hell. Just boot and nuke. Or do an ATA secure erase on the drive, and if you're that paranoid, do it a couple more times for good measure. So this video has a whole lot of words for what boils down to deleting a file deletes the record but not the contents, so delete the contents, which is the one sentence answer. But a lot more goes into it than that. The only way to ensure a file is inaccessible forever is to destroy the storage media completely. But for the sake of protecting your sensitive information, a 7-pass overwrite is more than enough. Or wipe the drive entirely from the BIOS in a couple of seconds if you're not worried about losing anything. Hopefully you learned something today about how file systems work, and why data recovery is possible. If I inspired you to take better care of your sensitive information, then I achieved the ultimate goal of this video. Over the course of working on this video, I've now started to take the security of my data a whole lot more seriously. Of course, I like it when people don't take theirs seriously, because it means I have more stuff to discover. Now you know how to securely delete files, you won't end up like the previous owner of this card, who left their entire stash of stress relief material on there. Explore the old internet memes, beatboxing heats, and bizarre smut that came with my recent camera purchase by clicking the video on screen now. I've been Escaper British. You've been watching Archive Dive. Until next time, if we live that long.